We're now absolutely delighted to have Bill Paparella for a fireside. Bill needs no introduction. He did one of the trades of the COVID bounce back upturn when he sold JetEdge to Vista Group. But he's been in the industry much longer. And he's look how he's got his West Coast slow walk down the room. There's no hurry. Hey, Bill, how are you? Right. Yesterday, we had a great session from one of your friends, Ken Riki, talking about the state of the fractional market. You know that very well. You started your career in aviation and fractional sales, having been a movie producer. How do you see the fractional market now?
All right, first, before I answer that question, I do want to say I'm extraordinarily impressed with where you've brought CJI. I don't know if all you guys have figured it out, but this guy has totally crushed it in our industry. We needed new, fresh events, perspective. It's great to see everybody together. And honestly, you deserve a lot of credit for getting us all together. So sorry to interrupt, but I had to say I'm really impressed with you.
To be fair, I do very little of it. I just get the credit, so that's fine.
Okay, you and your team.
Okay.
Anyways, so going back to your question.
Fractional market.
I mean, the state of the fractional market is pretty simple. I mean, there's two power players, obviously. They're both, have significant wind at their back. I think COVID, you learned a big lesson that, I think a lot of individuals realize that, that one budget line item a year is valuable. And if you're a net worth of, $150 million a year and you're making 4 or 5, just, income, to just like leave it and fly it, I think has a lot of value. And, I think you've seen, with the turnover in the fleets, and I think they've taken even some of the older planes you see in these fleets now, they've really dressed them up. And so, I'll be honest with you, I won't tell you which one, but I am actually a fractional owner myself. I sold my whole aircraft, and I'm actually really loving the experience. So I could see why, but I think fractional is going to be a dominant player for a long, long time right now. So I think the state of that industry is just going to keep getting better.
That's amazing that you're pushing for that, because I see you as, what Dan at Solaris calls a charter dog.
Yeah.
JetEdge was phenomenally good at charter.
Yeah.
You sold charter in your heart. You're really good at it.
Yeah.
What do you think of the charter fleets?
Yeah, so, the brand, obviously, when we sold, there was a big piece of the market that went away. I mean, we were doing, I don't know, close to 27,000 hours a year. So, relative to that market, it's, kind of on par with those other players. Vista sort of now kind of is the dominant force in that, although they do sell their 3-year program. I mean, they will do, ad hoc charter. And I think from that standpoint, they're formidable. The other groups, I think you're seeing some fleet changes, with wheels up, which I think is smart, right? I mean, I have to agree with that fleet change to Challenger 300. So that's what I did, right? So like, at the end of the day, like, to me, I think those are smart moves. Technically, wheels up beat me out of the Grandview deal. So in theory, I was a fan of that deal too. So, in general, I think, I like the fleet changes that are going on in the brand. I think there's room for more players in that market. But I don't know where they'll come from. But I do think with the used market getting a little bit more rumbly out there, and I think more inventory comes on the market, you'll see some other people pop up. And I think it's having an owned fleet, less value planes, and with good reliable yield management and reliable routes. I think you'll see that be a great. It's a great 7-iron in your bag, for flying.
You obviously sold to Vista. There's been a lot of chatter about Vista. There's been a lot of rumors.
Right.
I have to ask you, what do you think?
What do I think about Vista in general? So look, I mean, Thomas is the smartest guy in the room. I mean, the reality of it is he's one of the best P&L managers I've ever seen in my life. Super grateful that he bought me. I like where they sit today. Their balance sheet's really strong. People don't realize that. If you just look at the bond, you can kind of see what's going on there. And right now the type of double ETC rates. I mean, he's got airline debt on his fleet. I mean, he's like a Ferrari. So at the end of the day, I think the fleet's great. He's dominant in the global marketplace, right? I mean, there's no one really flying 7500s all over God's green earth, right? And he's got the team to do that. So, I mean, I like where he sits right now. I do. And regardless of the chatter, I mean, obviously I'm really close to it, so I see a lot, right? And I think I like where he sits.
What about the aircraft management market?
Yeah, so that one's changed the most, I think, and having owned a couple of aircraft before, since I sold Vista, I put them at both at different operators, which is kind of interesting to think. But one I was moving to a national player, and then one was a more regional. But yeah, look, I think you look at the Dan Drohans and the Brian Hirsches and the Jet Aviations. I mean, they've really turned into Goliaths. I mean, it's really impressive what these guys have done, right? I mean, really impressive. And I think below that surface, the regionals are struggling. Because that chart, what I would say the charter-centric aircraft manager isn't as prevalent as it was. You don't I think when I sold, we had 149 planes, 50 we owned, 100 we managed, all of them chartered for the most part. You just don't see that much anymore, right? And I think it's getting harder and harder. So like with the regionals, I think, the owners can be very difficult. It can be a low margin business. Sometimes, the owners are a big fish in a small pond. So I think the regionals have challenges. Doesn't mean they're getting killed, but I think they have way more challenges than these larger groups that have really at scale figured out how to. But personally, I think the charter management business right now is dead because Solaris, EJM, and JAV do a great job, but they're not really prolific at charter. I mean, EJM a little bit more, right? But Dan's not going to promise you charter and not apologize for it. It's okay. Like, either I'm noticing in management now, it's like, can you afford the plane? And if you can't, you're probably calling a broker because you're selling it because you're not going to get the hours or the yield you want right now.
Okay, the funny thing about you is when you were an operator, you were almost a trader.
Yeah.
You loved buying and selling aircraft, didn't you?
Yeah.
What do you think of the market at the moment?
Well, it's a bit all over the place. I think, you see all kinds of stuff. I had to actually get off LinkedIn the other day because I have to stop reading stuff about, the plane trading side because I never know what side of just like reading the tea leaves. Look, I think inventory is building in a lot of low areas. I think everyone's seeing that. The older model planes, G4, G5s, Global Expresses, your absorption rates get very high. They're hard to pinpoint. But, then you go to the Challenger 350 market and, good luck finding anything newer than 2017 right now. I mean, they're gone, right? So, a Challenger 650, I mean, best of luck, right? So in certain seams, you're seeing replacement value because the newer planes have pushed up so much on price and the OEMs are pushed out. And the OEMs are pushed out, sometimes that might be self-manufactured, maybe sometimes it's not. But, in the end, they maybe could produce more. But what they're holding firm with their books. And I think the replacement value now, if you have a 2019 or newer, the replacement value actually for the plane is pretty high. I mean, right now, a Challenger 650 is 28 million, 29 million or something, right? And that was 24, 23 million, not just 2 years ago, right? So if you have a 2020 Challenger 650 that's got 1,500 hours on it, you're probably selling it quickly. But if you have a G5, 1999, I mean, you might be sitting a while.
So if you've got anything older than 5 years old, 8 years old,
do I have something?
No, if you own an aircraft that more than
I think if you're 10 years or younger with reasonable miles, I mean, it depends again on the plane type, right? But I think ultimately, I think it's just a wonky market, and that the asset values continue to baffle me. Just when I think something's worth 12 million. And I'm holding firm myself, saying there's no way I'm paying more than that. Some guy buys it for 13. I go, okay, I'm wrong. I don't. So honestly, it's really been. I don't have the answers for it. It's just the market just keeps to seem to be chugging forward. Inventory is building in certain locations, and I think in those types deservedly so, right? So like, it's a 1999 G5. It's getting old, and the brakes now are $200,000. I was just doing a pre-buy the other day. I was looking at the for G-Force Pre. I mean, they wanted $175,000 a brake. It's like, whoa.
Owners seem to be taking the extra price. Owners don't seem that bothered that that maintenance costs have risen, or that that when an aircraft goes into a shop, it's probably going to be there for weeks rather than days.
Well, I think owners do care. By the way, I think that's why you're seeing so much inventory pile up in this area, right? But I also think that's why you're seeing a lot of the fractional starting to swell again, because you're seeing guys that are coming out of here realizing they're paying 22 grand an hour owning a G5, and for 16 grand an hour they can own a Global 5500, right? So it's like, why? Right? What's the point, right? So it sounded like a great idea to have your own pilots and everything, but then it's not so great sometimes, right? So I think I think owners do care. I think they don't really realize going into it that a break's going to be $175,000, and if all four do, it's not a bad hair. It's a bad hair day.
Yeah. Okay, so it's a few years since you sold Jet Edge.
Yep.
And you launched Aero Ventures.
Yep.
What is Aero Ventures?
Aero Ventures is simply a trading platform and advisory service, our big focus has been providing fast liquidity to the market. We've raised a couple $100 million in credit lines that we've been using for a while, and so from that standpoint, we've done a lot of deals in the corporate side and the direct end users, and then at the same time we've been underwriting certain brokers worldwide for their ability to underwrite planes themselves and inventory them. And that's taken different shapes and sizes and colors, and we're kind of figuring it out. But that's what it was intended to, are intended to do. When we inventory a deal with someone, we typically don't list it ourselves. We're a little different that way. Usually we won't inventory a plane with someone we don't know very well anyway. So if I think they're capable of listing the plane after they buy it, then we do it, and then we don't list it. So, I think, and then we've partnered with a lot of operators worldwide too. A couple, a number in the United States where we're helping them sort of almost white label aircraft sales, where we give them the market reports, we give them the listing services, we give them the ability to talk to their current owners, and we give them the whole platform without having to pay rent. And then if they have the ability or if they need capital, then we give it to them, right? So that's sort of like, a white labeled approach. That's worked actually really well over the last 6 months.
And you're happy inventorying in a market that's a bit odd?
Yeah, it depends what it is, right? I mean, there's a price for everything, right? So I think when it's all said and done, if you look at if I'm really nervous about it, I'll socialize it inside my network, right? But if I'm not nervous about it, then no, we do it. So but I mean, we're not shooting the lights out in the building, But I mean, we're conservative, right? So we're not just doing everything, right? So from that standpoint, knowing that we don't have to do a trade to survive, right? We're not worried about it. So we do what we want to do, and that seems to resonate, with our.
5 years ago, if you were buying an aircraft for inventory and it went into a PPI, how long would you expect to sell it if you were buying it with your own money for inventory versus now? Because I think yesterday we heard that deals are taking longer, PPIs are taking longer, and that hurts, doesn't it?
Yeah. So that's been really frustrating. Some of that's because I think we've made some mistakes. I mean, I definitely made some mistakes this year, and I was like, oh, all right, it's longer. But planes that I thought I should buy maybe had more time on them. I should have, But we were trying to get rid of things within 120 days in the past. I had a 450 2013 model. It took 18 months. Yeah, it's crazy. The bad news is I turned down an offer for 15.5 18 months earlier, and ended up selling it for 18 months later, but kept all the debt. So that was not a smart move on my part.
But was that mainly once it went into a shop and it just didn't come out?
No, when the shop came out, and then it just sat in the market forever. I had to do 2 pre-buys because it took so long for the 1 pre-buy. So it was, and then I had a Challenger 350. That took forever, 9 months. Yeah, so. Yeah, if you buy them right, you don't get so worried. It's just the problem is the debt you're carrying, absorbs your squeezes your margins really hard,
Is there an aircraft type out there under, if you've got a 5-year-old aircraft type out there that you will take every day?
Yeah, the Challenger series is hard to beat. I mean, most 350s, if it's the right price, I mean, I will buy them all day long. It's a good plane. People buy them quick. The absorption rate's low. There's not a lot out in the marketplace right now, so I like that. I like those.
And we had Wheels Up announcing that it wants those. So would you be very happy buying those?
I think they want Challenger 300s, but yeah. I like Global 7500s. Those 76. I bought a Global 7500 in July. We sold it in a week. So that's good. I like new and not so many in the market's good. Yeah.
Mike Francis is asking, do you think we'll see operators, including fracs, owning a greater share of the overall private aircraft fleet?
So to clarify the question, so in terms, does that mean like, the operators actually, instead of managing, they actually are going to own the aircraft?
I reckon Mike's asking about Vistas and NetJets and Flex taking a greater percentage of the total fleet.
Yeah, look, I think the customer base out there wants uniform fleets more often than not, and so I think you'll see those fleets continue to grow, especially as used aircraft come back in line. Because, a 2009 Challenger 300 is a great plane. If it only has 4,000 on it, in the fraction where 4,000 on it is basically new, right? So, that's like 2.5 years for them, right? So, at the end of the day, I don't see how the branded charter fleets don't continue to swell, especially with the right programs, right? Cross countries, this, that, and the other. Could be good.
So, yesterday, Ken from Flex was saying that he regrets selling nearly everything he sells.
Who said that?
Ken Reekie said
he regrets
whenever he hates selling, and whenever he sold something, he usually regrets selling it.
Yeah.
I don't get that impression from you with Jet Edge.
Okay. Well,
are you missing it?
I mean, no, I don't. Look, Ken's in a very different position. He has no debt, right? Zero debt. I mean, he's pre-selling aircraft before he buys them. He's in a great spot, right? I mean, it's like he's ordering 50 planes, already has them sold. So I mean, who doesn't want to do that? That sounds like a blast, right? So yeah, I would regret selling that probably. You know what I'm saying? But no, look, it's no secret. I've been vocal about it for the last couple of years. I really believe the aircraft management side of the business is very difficult. The owners can be very difficult. It's a very low margin business, and I think we were heavily managed on a fleet, and I'm not bullish on that type of margin, right? To build it and provide servicing that those owners really deserve and they want, but they don't want to pay, right? So I'm way more bullish in the superpowers than I am in the regional, So to go back to being, were we a superpower? Not really. We were kind of like ish, right? We were like ish. So it was just enough to get a great fuel deal and insurance deals, but and just big enough to, if owner fired you, you weren't losing sleep all night. You know what I mean? But but enough to make me mad for 5 days, and my wife thinking you're not cool. Yeah. So yeah, I'm happy to have sold it. Yeah.
Okay, what will the market look like in 5 years' time?
So our big bet. So one thing I didn't talk about. One of the big bets we're making in Air Ventures is investments in technology. I think what you're seeing. I think I'm not bullish on the forward-facing side of it. I mean, Exo's really dominated that, right? So the idea that Exo's really, and Sergei Petrosov really, I think, is kind of been the wizard behind the curtain, right? I mean, he's created these apps that are pretty remarkable, and the technology at Vista is absolutely remarkable. You can't imagine some of the stuff they've created on the back end. It was absolutely stunning to me, and Sergey was really behind all that. And JetSmart turned in the Exo app, and I think from that standpoint, you're seeing 3 or 4 million users. But it cost Sergey and then Thomas essentially. I mean, it was. I won't speak for what Thomas spent because that's probably confidential, but I can tell you when he sold, he had spent $190 million to acquire those clients. So the cost of acquisition for retail-facing people, I think, is very difficult. Where I see a really big trend that I like a lot is in these. You're looking at you look at Avinode is making some bigger plays. You look at Tavuli. You see you're seeing a Flex. And I'm sure I'm going to leave some people out. It's not fair. Wingform recently has caught my eye. I really like what they're starting to do. I think there's there's so many of these platforms right now that MySky. He's really done an excellent job. So you're starting to see these platforms come together and if you put some AI, and I think it wouldn't surprise me in 5 years, if the operators don't need to think about yield, I mean, they don't think about trip planning. I mean, having a human, yeah, okay, if you're going to fly to Argentina or something, okay, you got to call you have to have a relationship and you get in, this hard. But in the U.S., you don't need to do that, right? So like the idea that you're doing these trips manually doesn't make sense to me. And I think you're finally seeing buy-in from venture firms, PE firms, to put more money into these back-end systems, which is really the driver industry and creates better efficiency, which would make me more bullish in regional aircraft management if they had a tool to not have to hire 50 people for the job of 20 planes. They could hire 10 or 15. Then I think you've got a better chance, right? But it's otherwise you got to be at scale. But I think technology is the winner. I think the branded charter fleets will continue to grow, and I think fractional will continue to grow. I think to me that seems to be, and I think you'll see these behemoth aircraft management firms continue to be super scalers, with great fuel rates and great insurance rates, and the key, your cost should probably be less. You might not get a lot of charter, but you're flying at $3 a gallon versus $4.50, which is material.
Do you have any worries about the next few years? Do you think the market's going to correct?
Well, I think it's corrected already in charter. I mean, it's pretty crazy. I don't think it's cratered, but that's for sure. But I think we're all down 30% from our highs. It's not, like I said, I have the fraction. I will fly private. So sometimes I'll call for a quote. Sometimes I can't believe the cost that comes to me. But then when I say, I don't like that, it's like, we'll give you 30% off for it. So I'm going, okay. Well, I think you're seeing the yields out there, depending again what you're doing. Not everyone is following this line. I do think people are beating this benchmark, by the way. I just think 90% are not. And I think you've seen the correction already. But I also think I don't think it's going to go back to pre-COVID either, for a couple reasons. One, I think pre-COVID was ridiculous. A G550 cost the same in 2004 as it did in 2019. Like, why? Makes no sense. That makes no sense to me, right? So like, it's a $25 million plane, so like, why would a 2018 G550 cost the same as a 24? And so the rates were mixed up anyways. It didn't make sense. It wasn't fair to the owner, really, right? And so I think you're going to see owners kind of saying, I was kind of here already. I don't need to sell, and I kind of want $9,000 an hour. That's how it's going to be. And I think if they take less charter, take less charter. So from that standpoint, on the aircraft sales side, honestly, you'd have to ask Chad Anderson from Jetcraft. He'd probably know better than me, because it's throwing me for a loop out there these days. So we're cautiously working our way through it, but it's definitely an interesting market. I don't think it craters by any stretch, but I think it's interesting. Like I don't know where it goes. It's certainly not going to crater in the newer plane market, that's for sure.
And on that optimistic bombshell, thanks very much, Bill.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you.
All right.